Guys, Pretty Boy Shoes back another video, and today we have a tutorial on how to make this muddy and concrete dirt base. To start off, what you're going to need is a multi-purpose filler designed for walls or other cracks, your base you're working on, an old brush, possibly some super glue. Now you're going to need to make these, which are pretty much just clay that's been flattened onto a flat surface and then broken up. You're going to need a brown wash, a cream coloured paint, and a black and white paint. These three here can be substituted for craft paint, which I've done with this brown paint. So please enjoy, please try it out, and please remember to comment, like and subscribe. The first step is to use whatever you're using to apply the spackle and just get a good amount onto it. Grab the base and smear it on. The next step is to use whatever you're using to apply a spackle and just go like this. This will give it a bit more of a rougher texture, make it look like either sand or dirt or mud. Also it's worth saying that this stuff is sandable, so if you get any around the edges of the base you can just sand it off later. Okay, with that done, we can bring in our broken up bits of clay. These bits will work great as either stone or concrete. So I'm just going to grab a bit I like, and that fits onto the base, and just place it there. If it doesn't stick on its own, you can use super glue. Okay, so the next step is to let it dry, which can take up to 6 hours, and I'll be back once it's dry. Alright, so I'm back and I've gone ahead, let this thing dry, and I've also primed it using black. Now I'm going to come in using my brown craft paint and just give it a good base coat. Doesn't really matter how thick you put the paint on because it's a base. It may take a couple of coats, so I'll be back once that's dry. Alright, so now that the brown is completely dry, you're going to add a little bit of ivory paint to your brown or whatever cream colour, and then dry brush it with the colour you've made. Here's the colour. If you don't know how to dry brush, there are quite a few tutorials online. Essentially just gonna drag it over the whole bit, and this will give it a highlight. As you can see, I'm going quite heavy with this dry brush. Alright, so now that's done, move on to the next dry brush, which is using this colour, which is just more cream paint mixed in with the brown. This is going to be a very light dry brush. Alright, the next step's going to be a wash, but I'm going to let this dry because you don't want the wash sort of making the paint wet again and then you just get a mess. So I'll be back when that's dry. Alright, so I've got Agrax Earthshade here, and this is going to be the wash we're using. So make sure you've given it a good shake to get all the pigment around. And we're just going to be applying this across all of the dirt. You can be quite liberal in its application. So that's essentially mud and dirt areas done. The next step will be to paint the concrete. So I'll be back once this wash is dry. The first step of the concrete is to come in using a pretty dark grey and just base coat the whole area. It's probably worth being careful not to get any of the grey paint onto the finished mud areas. The dark grey is dry, and now we're going to come in with a lighter grey and just dry brush it over all of the surfaces. When it comes to the sides, it's important to not get any on the brown areas. Alright, and pretty much the last step, which I like to do, is using the same colour as the final highlight on the mud areas. I just go around the edges of the concrete and give it a light dry brush, as if some dust or dirt has been picked up from the mud and deposited onto the concrete.